Hello and welcome to episode 21 of What Makes This Song Special. As always, I'll be here to tell a little story about a song that makes me think of a time in my life, and then do a part two where I do a cover version of the song. We'll talk a wee bit about the song as well, and a little bit about the singer of the song. This week's song is R.E.M. I've said the word song a lot of times already. R.E.M. Everybody Hurts. And I'll dive straight into the story this week. So this song takes me back to round about the year 2000, maybe 99, 2000. I just left school, was taking a bit of a gap year or two to concentrate on my music, songwriting, band, etc. I've mentioned this period in my life a couple of times on different episodes already. Me and my mate Mark Livingston, were doing quite a bit of songwriting at this point for our band. Check out the Manic Street Preachers episode if you want to learn a little bit more about that time in that band. So yeah, Mark's lyrics were great. Mark's lyrics were really, really cool, powerful, political, and I used to enjoy putting melodies to some of his ideas and vice versa. So we were kind of writing ideas for songs, waiting for our bass player to come back from, he was studying at Oxford University, and we were kind of waiting for him to come back and looking for a drummer at the time. I believe we didn't have a drummer, I think. It's a long time ago now. So yeah, we're kind of writing songs. I remember there was a whole summer when we left school where we would just catch up and walk for miles with a guitar, chatting about music, people, stuff, as you do. And then we'd find somewhere to sit and we'd pull out the guitar and just have a bit of a jam, either working on ideas or singing covers. And it could be in the middle of the woods, it could be on the pavement by the side of a residential street, a piece of grass in a park. We would just like find somewhere to sit, pull the guitar out, play some songs. It could be quiet or somewhere where there's lots of people walking past, and we didn't really care. We just had quite a lot of fun doing that I remember like a whole summer, I think, of doing that, or maybe longer. But so we had a couple of cover versions that became our favourites. 3 covers in particular that I always remember playing at the time, and they were Faith by George Michael, Surfing USA by the Beach Boys, and Everybody Hurts by R.E.M. Probably a slightly strange trio of choices that in hindsight didn't really have much in common with each other. So I'll switch off my heater. Didn't have a lot in common, with each other song-wise, but we must have had a reason for playing them all the time. We just kind of fell in love with playing those 3 songs. I remember playing a couple of acoustic gigs at Strathclyde Student Union as well. And just as a duo, I think I sang and played the acoustic, and Mark maybe played his red Strat and put in some backing vocals as well. And we would do a mixture of covers and some of our own songs that we were kind of working on or demoing, waiting for the band to come back together. Looking back, I think we could have really embraced a sort of modernised Simon and Garfunkel thing at the time, but I think we were looking for a drummer, as I said, and obviously waiting for the rest of the band to kind of come back together. So we had more of a plan of doing this rock band again, rather than doing a sort of folky Simon and Garfunkel thing, which could have been cool. But anyway, Mark had this idea that, seeing as we always just sat and played songs in the middle of nowhere for our own enjoyment, he sort of said, "Oh, why don't we take our wee act into the city centre and do a bit of busking? Make some money and a laugh, doing something we're doing anyway." I was kind of immediately not really up for it. I always thought of busking as a bit of a dark art, and I didn't really get the vibe. I was used to playing to audiences, not very big audiences, but I was used to playing to audiences at that point who kind of sat and watched your show. You put together a show, you played your songs, and people sat and applauded in between. The thought of playing to people as they walked past and heard 20 seconds of a segment of your set made me a wee bit put off. But Mark was super keen, and I went with it, and we sort of arranged to try out doing 5 or 6 songs one Saturday afternoon. I think it was a Saturday afternoon in Glasgow's busy shopping area of Buchanan Street. So if anybody's been to Glasgow before, it's kind of one of the busiest parts of the city. And we heard you needed a permit to play there, so we were a wee bit nervy, looking out for the police or whoever's job it would be to reprimand us for breaking the rules. And we put down my leopard skin hat. Yes, you heard correctly, a leopard skin. I don't think it was real leopard skin, don't worry, for any animal activists out there. It definitely wasn't a real leopard skin hat, but a leopard print hat, I should say. Yeah, I think I thought I was like Axl Rose or Steven Tyler at the time, so my attire was quite questionable in hindsight. But anyway, I threw down my hat for people to put money in if they liked the set, and we were pretty well received. I think for the first few songs, I remember looking down and being surprised at there being around, I don't know, £20, 20 quid. I don't know what that would be in other currencies for anybody watching from other parts of the world, but about £20 in British money, and it was in the hat after quite a short time. So I thought this could work out. And then in true Glasgow fashion, we were approached by a junkie. So a junkie for those of you who don't know or live in Glasgow, a junkie is a sort of Glasgow term for a sort of down on their luck drug addict who roams the streets looking for spare change and causing trouble in a sort of zombie-like state. I think that's a fairly apt description of what a junkie is. I'm pretty sure every country has them. And I do feel really sorry for people who are addicted to anything, especially drugs and things. That's awful. So I'm not poking fun at folk like that, but the term we use in Glasgow is junkie. It is a bit of a sort of derogatory term towards those types of folk. But yeah, at first he seemed like a very friendly junkie who was standing sort of dancing and miming the guitar in front of us for a couple of minutes, which was both unnerving and off-putting, and as much as it was quite funny. And then in a split second, in true junkie fashion, while our guards were down, he grabbed the hat with the money and started running up Buchanan Street. So we were kind of like in shock. We got a bit of a fright, and because of that, he ended up getting a bit of a head start on the chase. But then we decided that he wasn't going to get away with it, so we decided to chase him, and didn't want to leave our stuff lying about. So I remember, like, instead of just leaving the setup, we didn't want anybody else to come and steal something else from us. So I remember we like picked up the microphone stand and my microphone, and Mark had his guitar and like his amp, and we're like running up the street chasing this guy with all our equipment. And yeah, it must have been, I mean, I can only imagine what people thought as they were, onlookers. I mean, Buchanan Street's probably the busiest shopping street in the whole of Glasgow, so it's got all these nice clothes shops. It's got, designer clothes shops and jewellers and restaurants. And it's all a pedestrian only area, so there are no cars at all. So you can imagine how it looked to see two young guys dressed as Axl Rose and Slash from Guns N' Roses chasing this junkie up the street whilst carrying all their music equipment and stuff. We must have looked ridiculous. And as we got closer to him, we were shouting at him and sort of swinging the microphone stand at him. And eventually, I think he knew he wasn't going to outrun us, and he dropped the hat with the money in it and escaped. So 20 minutes into our busking career, and it was all over. And we just couldn't be bothered going back to the set, and we headed for a McDonald's, I think, on the way to the bus stop, and continued our search for a drummer and bandmates. So that was our busking career. Very, very quick busking career. The streets weren't for us. And so that's my wee story. So that's what Everybody Hurts, and I suppose those 3 songs that I mentioned, Faith and Surfing USA, those 3 songs, we tended to play them every time we got the chance to play to anybody. I think we'd played them that afternoon, although I can't exactly remember what the set list was. I'm pretty sure we would have played those 3 songs. They might have been interrupted by the chase with the junkie, but so that's a wee short story this week. That's what the song reminds me of. A wee bit about the song. Everybody Hurts was written by R.E.M, and it was released on their Automatic for the People album. I think it was their 8th album. I might be wrong, but I think I read that somewhere. It became their biggest hit and has been used over the years in lots of films, adverts, charity campaigns because of the lyrics and stuff. A wee fun fact about the song is that the string arrangement for Everybody Hurts was actually written by Led Zeppelin bass player John Paul Jones, which is very cool, and I only found it out myself and doing a wee bit of research for you guys for this episode. I think every so often, like, to talk a wee bit about Everybody Hurts, I think every so often a song comes along that has a lyric or a title or a message that just speaks to everyone who hears it. You know, R.E.M were never one of my favourite bands. I'm not a huge fan of the band. They've got some really nice songs. I never really get into them. But the song definitely resonated with me, and I think it resonates with every listener because it deals with a universal emotion or issue that nobody can escape, and that is that everybody hurts, or at least, you know, everybody struggles at points and things, you know. And I think it became definitely a sort of maybe the song, or at least one of the songs that became a sort of generational song that people of my generation definitely kind of connected with and resonated, or it resonated with them. I think it's a kind of special song for that generation. Definitely teenagers who are all full of worries about what the world's about and trying to work out, you know, why they're here, what's life about. The song became sort of an important anthem to remind us that we're not alone, everybody struggles, it's normal, we're all in this together kind of thing. And I think songs like that, songs like Imagine by John Lennon and Bridge Over Troubled Water, songs that just deal with issues on a universal level that everybody can relate to, I think always become, if they're good, if they're also musically good and catchy and sung well, they can become, you know, a huge hit and a huge song for a whole generation, which I think Everybody Hurts definitely did for people who were around in the 90s when it was released. The singer in R.E.M, Michael Stipe, has an interesting voice. For a band with quite big production at times and quite crunchy, distorted guitars, and I don't know if I would call them a rock band. I suppose they were kind of, I mean, they weren't a heavy rock band, but slightly a kind of rock band. He's quite a soft tone for that type of sound. You'd probably expect more of a naturally rocky sounding singer to front a band like that, but it seemed to work for them. I think it just seemed to work. I'd say his tone's quite soulful, and he's got a really great storyteller voice, like kind of folky storyteller type sound. Not got a particularly powerful voice, and he tries to counter that by over compressing at times. He sort of over compresses the chords, which makes him sound a little bit nasal, although certainly not in an unlikable way. I'd say that it gives him the distinctive sound that he's got. You immediately know that it's Michael Stipe singing when you hear it. Technically, I would say he got a wee bit shouty on some of the heavier songs. As I said, I think the sound of the band was maybe a wee bit heavier than his voice was naturally equipped to deal with, in my opinion, of course. I'm sure people will disagree, but I think that probably fatigued him a lot, because he maybe wasn't a naturally kind of powerful rock singer. When you hear him now, excuse me, bubble in my throat. When you hear him now, he's not really lasted the test of time. Sadly, his voice sounds a little bit more kind of beaten up than it probably should at, you know, I think he's about 60. And I think even recordings from a decade ago when he was only 50, his voice sounds quite broken. And hopefully, you know, he can get the back, and he quit kind of touring and stuff a long time ago. So he's maybe just done the odd vocal performance and his voice isn't really back to its, you know, best, you know, warmed up state. Maybe it would be if he was to kind of get ready for a tour and start to work on his vocals again, start to work on exercises, sort of stretching things and strengthening things again. I'm sure he would be able to get some of that back, but certainly not at the moment. From what I've heard him doing the odd kind of performance on YouTube videos and things over the last decade or so, and his voice definitely sounds quite fatigued. But you know, I don't want to kind of, I'm not dissing the man. A great songwriter, great singer, great soul in his voice, and he sings the lyrics with the conviction of, you know, a poet. You know, he really does. He conveys the story and the message of the song so well, and I don't think any song in their repertoire that I've heard does that like Everybody Hurts does. So a fantastic song, which I will be doing a cover of in part 2. Look out for the wee box that'll pop up at the end of the video. So that's my story, quite a short one this week. You know, that's what it takes me back to. When I hear Everybody Hurts, I always think back to that summer where we were writing songs and trying to make it as, you know, pop stars, rock stars, songwriters, whatever, artists, and we had our whole lives ahead of us. It was exciting. We were playing our first gigs, and I always think of that time when we attempted busking for about 20 minutes in Buchanan Street in Glasgow before we were robbed of our £20. So that's my story. If you want to hear more, there are plenty of episodes up now. As I said, this one is number 21, so there are 20 other episodes and also 20 cover versions of the songs to jump through if you want to jump on there and see them. There are links coming up, and there'll be, I'm sure, suggested videos underneath. I'll be back next week with another song and another story, and until then, enjoy the cover version. Thanks so much.